Welcome to SenseCheck by FundSense, the go-to resource for anyone working in asset management operations. This podcast series is hosted by senior members of the FundSense team, alongside industry practitioners with deep experience across asset management. We'll be breaking down key regulatory, operational, and industry developments shaping the industry and what they mean in practice. In each episode, we'll focus on the realities asset managers are facing today, from data management, fund reporting and disclosure to evolving investor communications, and share clear, practical insights to help you streamline your operations.
Welcome back to SenseCheck by FundSense. I'm Martin Jones, Head of Product at FundSense, which basically means I spend a lot of time working with firms to understand where product information starts to break down across documents, systems, and disclosures. And today I'm joined by Christoph Napetschnig, our Head of Data. This is actually Christoph's first time on the podcast, so welcome, Christoph.
Thanks, Martin. Really looking forward to the conversation. It's a topic we spend a lot of time on, so it's good to unpack it properly.
Today we're talking about product data. Historically, it's been treated as an operational task in the background, but increasingly it's becoming a real source of risk and also a source of competitive advantage when firms get it right. So to start us off, Christoph, why has product data suddenly become such a big topic for firms?
I think what's changed is that product data isn't sitting quietly in the back office anymore. It's everywhere. Regulators are looking at it more closely. Investors expect total transparency, and we now have far more disclosure channels than we did even 5 years ago. So if something changes, for example, a fee, a benchmark, an ESG classification, it doesn't just sit in one system. It flows into kits, PRIIPs, websites, distributor feeds, data vendors. And if it's inconsistent, everyone sees it. Therefore, product data now drives trust, it drives distribution, it drives regulatory confidence. It's not just reporting anymore.
Absolutely. And when people hear the words product data, they often think of a few static fields in the system. So maybe a name, a fee, a benchmark, but in reality, it touches almost every part of the business. Where does product data actually show up today?
Good question. Honestly, almost everywhere in the business. It's in prospectuses, kits, PRIIPs kits, SFDR annexes. It feeds EMTs and EETs. It's on websites and platforms. But it's also behind the scenes, onboarding, classifications, reporting. And the key thing is errors don't stay local. If one field is wrong, that mistake travels. It shows up on a platform, a distributor questions it, compliance gets nervous. Because the ecosystem is so connected now, inconsistencies spread very quickly.
So it's clearly broader than people think. So when you talk to firms, what typically sits inside product data beyond the obvious identifiers?
Yes, it's much broader than people think. Yes, you've got, for example, a fund name and ISIN, but then you've got share class, structures, fee schedules, benchmarks, objectives, or risk classifications. You've got life cycle events like mergers, closures, or launches. You've got country registrations, and now increasingly ESG data, sustainability indicators, taxonomy alignment, principal adverse impact metrics, and none of those are static. Funds evolve, fees change, benchmark change, regulations change. So product data is constantly moving. That's where the challenge really begins.
Yes, absolutely. So let's now talk honestly about the current state of the industry. What does product data maintenance actually look like inside most firms today?
If we're honest, in many firms, it's fragmented. Different teams own different parts. Product has one view, operations another, ESG another, marketing another. So data lives in multiple systems. And quite often, spreadsheets quietly become the real source of truth. Changes go around by email. Someone updates the system, one system. Someone rekeys it somewhere else. And then at some point, someone asks which number is correct. And that's where a lot of time gets lost, reconciling instead of improving.
And what risks does that create beyond just operational frustration?
It creates real risk. For example, regulatory risk. Outdated disclosures are not a small issue anymore. It creates distributor friction. Feed gets rejected. It damages trust if platforms spot inconsistencies. And there's the hidden cost, the hours spent fixing downstream issues instead of preventing them upstream. It also slows launches. Every new share class becomes a coordination exercise. So it's not just inefficient, it becomes a structural constraint.
But one thing we hear a lot is that nobody really owns product data because everyone touches it. So why is ownership so difficult to define?
Good question. Because everyone does touch the data. Product defines certain attributes. ESG teams manage sustainability fields. Operations maintains systems. Compliance reviews disclosures. So responsibility gets blurred. You end up with subject matter experts, operational processors, reviewers, but no single governed product record. And at the same time, regulators expect clear lineage. Who changed what, when, why? Without defined stewardship, ownership becomes vague. And that's when issues creep in.
Indeed. Let's now move on to solutions. So when firms move beyond spreadsheets, what actually changes in the way data is managed?
I think the biggest shift is centralization. You create a product master, one governed source of truth. Instead of data sitting everywhere, it sits in one control place. Then workflows replace email chains. Changes get validated automatically. Approvers are recorded in the system. And instead of rekeying the data into 5 places, the update flows downstream automatically. You also get versioning and audit trails built in, which regulators increasingly expect. At the end of the day, it turns maintenance into something structured and scalable.
And culturally, what shifts inside the organization when that happens?
There's less firefighting. Teams stop scrambling to fix inconsistencies before a deadline. There's more confidence in outputs because people trust the source. And roles shift. People move from retyping and reconciling to reviewing, validating, and improving. That's a big change in mindset.
Indeed. But just moving on then. So ESG has added another layer of complexity here. Why has sustainability data been particularly challenging for firms?
Because I think ESG data is dynamic and interpreted differently across markets. So regulations evolve, distributor expectations vary, metrics come from multiple providers, and sometimes sustainability data has been treated as a side project, not governed like core product attributes, for example. But it really needs the same rigor as fees or benchmarks. If ESG data isn't embedded into the core product record, inconsistencies are almost guaranteed.
And going back to connectivity, so how does the connectivity to platforms, distributors, APIs change the importance of getting data right internally first?
Because automation amplifies everything. If your internal data is wrong and you push it out via APIs to distributors and platforms, the error multiplies instantly. Automated distribution doesn't fix bad data, it scales it. So getting the internal source right becomes critical before you scale connectivity, in my opinion.
And for firms listening who recognize themselves in this, what are the first realistic steps that they should take?
Keep it simple, start small. Identify your high-risk attributes, fees, benchmark, regulatory classifications. Define clear ownership. Centralize those fields first. add validation rules so errors get caught early, then automate the most painful manual processes. You don't need a big bang transformation. I think you need structured progression.
So the message isn't buy a system and the problems disappears. It's about changing how product information is treated across the business. So if you had to summarize in one sentence, and I know that might be a challenge, what does good product data management ultimately enable?
I think good product data management enables trust and scalability, and it ultimately turns data from a maintenance burden into a strategic advantage.
Thanks, Christoph. That was a really interesting discussion.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks for having me.
And if today's conversation sounded familiar, that's because most firms don't have one big product data problem. They have dozens of small ones spread across systems, documents, and teams. Helping firms untangle that is exactly what we spend our time doing at FundSense. So if you'd like to explore it further, feel free to reach out to us. And thanks everyone for listening to SenseCheck by FundSense. We'll be back next time with another practical topic affecting fund operations and regulations.
That brings us to the end of this episode of SenseCheck by FundSense. If you found it useful, subscribe to stay up to date with the regulatory and operational changes shaping asset management. Thanks for listening. Please join us for the next episode of SenseCheck, coming soon.